Okay, so we're trying to find out what non-essential business would mean, or is it a form of eminent domain? Well, we're seeking to work out our issues at the state representative's office. Homeschool is a formal part of American heritage. It's proven to work in a very effective way where we want to see the same amount of legislation allowed to schools to be allowed to parents who want to homeschool their own children. And I believe there is probably more of this going on than you think because it's proven to be very successful. And with the level of school shootings, it makes more sense to have that type of privacy and education allowed to you. The fact is that when they get into the topic of non-essential and you're homebound as a parent, especially parents who are typically used to working, there's so many things scripturally going on right now in America that really the best way to go down the road that we're going to is get back to the Bible. And because the Bible, it worked, and this is why the forefathers had the framework. And no matter what happens from this point on, when the militia starts to take notice, because I just read this on a post today on Facebook, where it's got to the point where no one can force you out of your business and shut your company down. It's actually illegal to shut a company down. If these are the type of things that are going on, it would be like burning a torch and torching people's buildings. And we saw movies like The Patriot, and these things really did happen in American history. And there really was an LA riots, and there really have been public hangings and things that have happened in American history. And because of the story of Kent State and the shootings of students, everything that's going on with the school shootings in itself is worth talking about. When it comes to something like this, which we know after finding out the information is coming out that coronavirus was created virus, and that it goes a step further that a lot of the viruses are made out of abortifactia, we can now know why there was such a demand for aborted baby tissues, end quote, stem cells. Now we also know the whole story behind, if you put the whole story together about the Project Veritas report, you can also make we can get a better story about the demand for aborted babies in China. Now, why China likes to have abortifactia, and the video that showed where they were selling baby body parts for a certain amount of money for research. China's days of doing business in the Communist Socialist Party are probably pretty much come to an end today. From what I see, now America is angry. And Americans are so angry because, see, the people that are trying to enforce the non-essential thing, what they're going to run into is they're going to run into losing their paychecks and their business and status, and they'll be in jail. It's a violation of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and by law, they would be fined and imprisoned for shutting down businesses and companies and using the police force to do it. U.S. police officers are not in the business of shutting businesses down. Not unlawful. It's unlawful to shut companies and businesses down. Coronavirus is now been reported as a bioweapon under the Anti-Terror Act. Because there's been so many forms of terrorism, it's going to take a while before the Homeland Security declares it a complete bioterror attack, because that's exactly what it is. It's a chemical attack, and also included learning more information about the opioids, and fentanyl was used also as another form of terrorism, bioterrorism, a chemical attack. In fact, here locally in Butler, PA, there was 8 prison guards that were almost killed and used where fentanyl had been sent to the prison in an envelope. And if you know anything about fentanyl, you even breathe the fentanyl, you could go into cardiac arrest. So the same Chinese companies that were involved with this bioweapon, which is fentanyl, and also coronavirus, just breathing it, you could go into cardiac arrest. And this happened here locally, where 8 prison guards almost died. So they're not gonna be able to convince a whole lot of people nowadays. Once somebody breathes fentanyl, I mean, that's a death threat altogether. And we were told by some people recently in Navy SEALs, and a person that I talked to on Facebook, about how many things have been going on when you're looking the other way, more or less. Let me just say to you that because it's got to the point that now, for the purpose of legalities, that the civil liberties that are being infringed upon, when it says don't tread on me, that's exactly what we were taught and we learned, and it's a part of our American heritage. And the one thing I learned about the infringement of our civil liberties is that when people or companies or any entities infringe on your civil liberties, it becomes a whole different matter. Law enforcement is not in the business of shutting down anybody's businesses, and our law enforcement is not in the same business as taking guns away from Americans. That is the Stasi. That was what the swastikas of the German Third Reich was doing. That is not the job of U.S. soldiers, and it's not the job of our police officers. And what these people now who are in the top tier, who have taken advantage and taken full advantage of the positions that they have been given, they have lost all trust of the people. To have this many people coming out and speaking out against it now, when they lose total trust of the people, it's called the will of the people for a reason. And in the U.S. Constitution, when you infringe on the will of the people, it changes the game. It's not even a civil war. Because they cannot blame this on race either. They wanted to say that the Chinese people are somewhat the victims. Nobody forces China to come over here. In fact, when people sign up to become U.S. citizens, they have to go about becoming a citizen like anyone else. There's no special treatment for that. In fact, the people in China that have escaped, there's a lot of innocent Chinese people who escaped communist China that would not want to revisit it and enjoy being an American and love being an American. I read their story, and I know there's a great story, and I hope you get a chance to read the book. And it's by Khalid Hosseini. And what the book Kite Runner is about is they were people that loved America. There are people that I don't add anybody to my Facebook page that I don't know, because my old Facebook page, I locked myself out of it, and I can't get back in there. But I just want you guys to know that there are things going on, and because I have been a accused of a lot of things. I don't get into a whole lot of it. I'm just talking about what your basic civil liberties are, is that when somebody infringes upon your civil liberties without just cause, without probable cause, what they're doing is they're taking law in their own hands. Like, police officers aren't going to just go over there and knock down your door without having probable cause. They actually have to go through the court system, and they have to go through another level of court paperwork, because infringing on each other's civil liberties, when you start getting into that kind of stuff, when you start infringing on each other's civil liberties, you're no longer respecting each other as neighbors. And let me just tell you, as a neighbor, when somebody infringes upon your home or your family, you, the neighbor, or neighbor down like 100 miles away or 500 miles away, we're neighbors. And when somebody comes in and violates the very basic safe things that keep you safe, and it makes it safe to go home and go to bed and eat dinner, there's a lot of things that need to be looked into. Like, when I came home, I found out some things about my building. I first rented this apartment, and it was owned and operated by this company, and now it's been sold to a company from China. So I started writing letters, and I started asking the building inspectors in the Butler County to look into this, because my hands were numbing out, and I was going to bed, and I was wondering what the heck was going on. And when I say that, we know that apparently, because of the one child law in China, and the fact that they were asking for more abortifacient, this is in the news report, and we're going to get into the other story about what it is to be non-essential. It's important to know that the coronavirus is a bioweapon. It is a bioweapon, and they need to identify it that way. And we wait to hear what the Secretary of Defense is going to say, because what they're going to say to you guys is, I just want to give you a heads up now. It is a bioweapon. It is terrorism to murder Americans and to turn around and take your business or your company or your vehicle or that's a form of terrorism. It is called homegrown terrorism. No one can just go shut your business down unless there's probable cause. And this is where, because of the Patriot Act, because of what happened post 9/11, and this is the infringement on your rights. What happened is they created this organization called the TSA. The TSA did not exist until 2001. And what they created was a way to frisk and make sure that people that were going on, and this is because of these two planes that attacked New York. And now there's more information coming out about those two planes. And we heard also information that also there's that plane that went down in the field in Flight 93 was shot down by F-18. So you tell me how many of these potential threats have been, quote, deterred. Well, these are the things that we're finding out. See, the truth has a way of coming out. And Americans are angry. They're angry because when we told you guys, a form of bioterrorism is putting fentanyl in trying to murder prison guards. It's obvious this was going on. This is going on 2 years before all this stuff started happening. And then you find out little by little more and more reports about China and how involved China really is in American business. Right now, United States is in a unique position because, first of all, walking away totally from the NATO agreement and having U.S. sovereignty back in the hands of the American people puts the American people in a position of your authority, which the authority that was already given to you, because that was what was instilled in the Constitution and in the framework of the Constitution, so that you know the Constitution has it built into it. It was built in that the people decide. The people of America decide, not a small group of people who are public servants. That is not how it works. The public servants are a small group, and the definition of politics is poly, meaning many, ticks, of course, ticks out in the woods. Now, what I'm trying to say is that the framework of the Constitution allows you, when you're within the constitutional rights, you're not taking and you're not hurting or harming anyone by carrying and operating a gun. You, as a lawful citizen, you have those rights guaranteed to you in the Constitution. I have guaranteed constitutional rights that have been violated. When you take my truck and then you tell me and then you hang up on me, you're no longer acting in the best interests of the public. What you're doing is you're saying that I need to go to court. And that's exactly what legalism is in the United States. And see, what the non-essential businesses is they want to keep business owners and Americans in court for a while. And I'm going to tell you, that in itself is a crime. The fact is, it's clearly stated in the U.S. Constitution. They would have to surrender and turn it over to the officials, and they have to agree with the people, because I'm going to tell you what it's going to come down to. They will physically remove the leadership that is doing this to rob companies and businesses. They will physically take them out of their offices and tell them not to come back. Because once you lose the trust of the people and infringe on the will of the people, because all it takes is a group, 12 of your peers, to decide that. That is truly what we mean by a leadership deficit, when the will of the people is infringed upon. And we mean business, and we say, listen, you're infringing on my rights as to drive a car, to go to the store. This is not Saudi Arabia, yes. It's within my rights as a U.S. citizen to be defended and defend myself. And when, after being sexually assaulted and having somebody turn around and try to take my gun rights, it is outrageous and it's totally wrong. And every violation, every time somebody crosses that line, and I think about how many times somebody's crossed that line with me, and time again, and they push the envelope a little further, and then push that, and then realize every time somebody crosses that line or crosses that threshold, they have to realize they're in a different domain. Because what we share with you guys on a leadership deficit is this non-essential business thing. They're going to want you to go to court. They're going to want you to spend thousands of dollars of your own money with attorney fees and lawyer fees, and they know they're not going to be able to do that. So what you need to do is that when you go to the county office buildings, because they're going to have to demand answers, and it is going to come down to that the will of the people are going to decide what's going to happen with the leadership deficit. Because if leadership is brazen enough to say the things that they're doing, what they're doing is the same thing that Stalin did. Stalin did the same thing, and this is so Hitler-esque. It is like watching the Reichstag fire. That's what this whole coronavirus looks like to me. It's like the Reichstag. It's like the real bioweapon before a big war. And in Matthew 24 it says, there will be wars of rumors of wars. Be not shaken. This is the time to know what will happen in our future. We know that the Lord is nearer and closer and drawing closer to Jesus Christ now more than ever. And I just want to say something to the last post. I hope you realize that we're sensitive enough to know that this is a time for you to stick close to your family and your children and your friends, and get to know each other a little bit better. At the same time, you want to keep your businesses and you want to see America thrive again. It's a leadership deficit and you need to pay attention.